Well, look, I've been very clear in this race. I'm very honest. I am the underdog in this race, but I think I bring something to the table that the others don't. I haven't been part of this government over the last 3 years, and the single most urgent thing that the new Prime Minister's got to pick up is actually being able to deliver Brexit. And I've got some clear ideas about how we can do that, and I think I can bring something to the table that those who've been sat round the cabinet table and are partly responsible for why we are where we are, why we got such a kicking in the European elections last week, I can bring something to the table that they can't.
From the backbenches to Prime Minister, is that really a route?
Well, I think it wouldn't be if I'd not had any ministerial experience, but of course I had 6 years as a minister in 3 challenging roles, and then I had a period obviously in David Cameron's cabinet as government chief whip. So I know how to get things done in government. I've sat around the table about sharing in some of the biggest decisions in government. So I think I've got the necessary experience, but also I haven't been part of Theresa May's government, so I haven't been part of the mistakes that have got us to the position we're in, why we got such a kicking in the European elections last week. And I've got some ideas about how we can deliver Brexit, but also how we can then govern for the next 3 years, the things I would want to focus on, so that we can then take the fight to Jeremy Corbyn and beat him in 2022.
You're up against 2 people who've been post-referendum Brexit secretaries, post-referendum environment secretaries, for example, massive briefs involved in Brexit. Surely they are better placed because they would know how the negotiations have been going from the inside.
Well, I think the problem is that we're in a position where we made a promise 3 years ago to leave the European Union on the 29th of March, and we haven't done so. And all of the decisions that were taken that have led us here, whether it was agreeing the sequencing of the talks, whether it was the issues around the Irish backstop, all of those decisions, they weren't just taken by Theresa May, they were taken by the people who've sat around the cabinet table at some point over the last 3 years. And those decisions are why we are where we are. As I said, I think we need a fresh approach to getting Brexit delivered. It's only by actually delivering Brexit that we're going to win back those voters that we lost to other parties last week at the European elections. They're not going to believe promises from us, they actually need us to deliver.
So Mark Harper, Prime Minister, do we leave the European Union with or without a deal on the 31st of October?
No, we leave the European Union definitely for sure.
When?
I would prefer to leave with a deal, and one of the things I've said in this race is I don't think it's credible to say you can leave with a deal on the 31st of October, because we're going to have to go back to Europe and renegotiate it. That's going to take some effort in itself, but it's going to mean...
Is it doable at all? The group of negotiators has disbanded over that.
It is doable, but it isn't going to be easy. I think it's going to mean building a good relationship with the Irish Republic. Clearly the backstop is the key thing that stopped the Prime Minister's existing deal going through.
You eventually voted for it.
I did eventually vote for it. Well, I took the decision that if we didn't get it through, we weren't going to leave. And I think I was right, because it didn't go through and we haven't left yet. So I think we need to get that deal done. It's going to require building some relationships with the Irish Republic, getting Stormont back up and running, and building those relationships with our EU partners. It is going to take some time over the summer and into the autumn. And also you've then got to get whatever deal you get through Parliament. And I don't think it's credible to say you can leave with a deal by the 31st of October. So we will need an extension. It's not going to be a kick the can down the road extension. I think it means once the negotiations have kicked off and you've started engaging, you can then have a focused extension of a specific length to deal with a specific task, either to finish the negotiations and get the deal through, or you'll have done the negotiations and you need just to get the deal through Parliament. But I have been clear, if I'm faced with the choice of not leaving the European Union or leaving without a deal, then I'm prepared to leave without a deal. The reason why I think you have to do it like this is there'll only be a majority in Parliament to support leaving without a deal if my colleagues who are very nervous about leaving without a deal are absolutely persuaded that you've gone to the nth degree to get a deal, and it's only because the European Union haven't budged, and it just isn't possible, and they've seen what happens in an electoral test if we don't leave, that I think they'll be persuaded. They're not going to be persuaded if they think that's your starting position where you want to end up. So I want to leave with a deal, but I think we have to leave the European Union. That's the decision the British people made, and they expect us to deliver on our promise to get us out.
One thing I think all candidates will agree on, and probably every MP will agree on, this is a huge task. It's taken down your former boss David Cameron, your former boss Theresa May. How will you be able to serve the residents of the Forest of Dean at the same time as handling what would be the most complex negotiations in peacetime history?
Well, look, that's a challenge that faces anybody who takes a job in government. Now, I accept that being leader of the party and Prime Minister is the biggest job in government, but I've done a number of challenging briefs over my time as the Member of Parliament in the Forest of Dean, and I've always looked after my constituents, which is why, at every election I've got a very significant majority, and at the last election in 2017, I got my biggest ever share of the vote at 54%. So I think my constituents at each election have told me they think I'm doing a good job, and I will carry on doing a good job if I'm successful at being elected as Prime Minister.
You've had a bit of fun on Twitter this week with someone suggesting you look like a stock image of a Conservative MP, but you aren't as well known as some of the characters.
No,
Is that a massive disadvantage?
No, I'd say the opposite. Look, as I said, I am the underdog in this race, but often the underdog wins, and the underdog often has the strongest fighting spirit, and that's the kind of spirit we need if we're going to make this work. But also, I do think we do need a fresh approach to getting Brexit delivered, and a fresh approach to tackling some of the other challenges. And obviously, because I'm not as well known, people will think I'm a fresh face and a fresh approach. I don't think you can say you're a fresh face if you've been sat around the cabinet table for the last few years.
The party is doing appallingly in the polls. The Liberal Democrats are winning a national poll.
Yep.
OK, that's only one poll at the moment, but a very bad result for Conservatives and Labour at last week's European Parliament elections. How is your party sort of stuck now in the doldrums, or can you really turn it round from a very low ebb?
No, I think we can turn it around. I mean, you mentioned the Liberal Democrats there. I'm very conscious, of course, that in the West Country, part of the reason why we won a majority in 2015 was we did so well against the Liberal Democrats. So I'm very conscious that in 2022, as well as beating Jeremy Corbyn and making sure we remain in government, I'm also clear we need to make sure we hold all those seats we won from the Liberal Democrats, and we don't allow them to come back, particularly in parts of the country like the West. And I know my colleagues will be very worried about, but I think it's very clear. I think if we keep our promises on Brexit, do what we said we were going to, and then we also pay a lot of attention to the other big challenges facing the country, making sure we put enough resources into education. I want to see a big push into further education and apprenticeship, so we look after all young people, not just those that go to university, and we make sure we tackle difficult subjects like social care, both for older people and for working age disabled adults. If we tackle subjects like that, explain them to the public and show what we're going to do to solve them, then I think they'll trust us to carry on governing the country.
The arithmetic in Parliament won't change, whoever the new leader is. You mentioned a general election there, and you mentioned 2022. Could a Mark Harper Prime Minister bring about a general election before then to try and solve this Brexit impasse?
Look, I don't think well, first of all, an early general election before we've delivered Brexit is a very bad idea. I think the public will punish us hugely, and frankly they would be right to if we haven't kept our promises. So I don't want an early general election. I think we need to deliver Brexit, and I think we need a period of governing and dealing with the other subjects the public expects us to deal with before we go back and ask them whether they should trust us in government again. I think they need to see some delivery before we go back and ask for that another 5 years in government.
You've been an MP longer than longer than many of the candidates that you're up against. A lot of boasting about their previous careers and how that helps them. What's your experience outside of this place?
Well, look, I come from a working class background. Both of my parents have regular jobs. My dad was a labourer, my mum was a correspondence clerk for a book club. I went to a state school, first person in my family to go to university. So for me, the Conservative Party is about opportunity. It's about making sure people get a fair crack of the whip and a chance to reach their full potential. I've got a solid career in business. I'm a chartered accountant. I worked for a global IT company for 7 years for Intel, based in Swindon, my hometown. So I've got a lot of experience which I found really helpful as an MP and when I was a minister. You can really tell when you've worked in business, you know how far you can push the government machine, you can really push it to deliver for the public, but you also know when things aren't achievable and when you need to change course. So I think I've got those skills from outside of politics, which help me be a better Member of Parliament, will help me be a really good and solid Prime Minister that the country could be proud of.
We've known for a while Theresa May is going to be stepping down, so I guess you've had time to plan this, but are you ready?
Yes, I am. I've got I think I've got a decent amount of support in Parliament, which I think will come out in due course when we have the ballots. I've got experience in government. I know what it takes to run big areas of government, and I've had experience as government chief whip looking at all of the issues that government has to deal with. I know what a big challenge it is. It's the most difficult job in government, but I'm up for it, and I'm in this contest to win it. Because I think I can bring something to the country and make a real difference.
So this isn't about guaranteeing a cabinet job under a different Prime Minister?
No, it's not. I've been there. I've had a job in the cabinet before, and I really enjoyed it. I'm not doing this to get another job in the cabinet. I'm doing it because I think I bring something to the table. I think I will be the right person to lead the party and to lead our country and deliver for it. That's why I'm in it. I'm in it because I want to win it and because I think I'd be the best candidate for the job.
I must ask, because it's the going question, are you a feminist?
Well, if you mean by feminist, do I think men and women should be treated equally? Yes, I do. I'm co-chairman of Women to Win, the part of the Conservative Party which is campaigning to have more women into Parliament, more members of Parliament that are women. So if that's what you mean by being a feminist, then yes, I am.
Mark Harper, thank you very much.
Thank you.